The SS Neebing. There's actually two vessels that operated on the Great Lakes with the name SS Neebing. The first SS Neebing was a steel bulk freighter. She was built in England in 1903 and then entered service on the Great Lakes the same year. She would carry cargo for various Canadian owners including Thomas Marks & Co. and the Canadian Northwest Steamship Company. She would serve on the Great Lakes until 1915, and then the vessel would be sold for the off-lake service and then renamed to the Jan Tomp. She would then leave the service on the Great Lakes. The second vessel with the name SS Neebing and today's story and episode would be launched in 1892 as the John B. Ketchum II. This story of the SS Neebing had a very troubled history on her service across the Great Lakes. She would be plagued with accidents ranging from salvage attempts to relaunchings of over 5 times before she would pass into the Canadian Registry in 1913. She would receive several renamings as well, one of which being the Colehurst in 1927. Then she would eventually receive her final name, the Neebing, in 1928. The Neebing was primarily known for being one of the first steel vessels built especially for the lumber trade across the Great Lakes. She could also carry sand and gravel as well for her cargo. The SS Neebing had a length of 247 feet. She had a 42-foot beam and a depth of 21.8 feet. She could also carry a crew of up to 15 members aboard her, and she would be pushed along with a triple expansion steam engine. The SS Neebing would later be outfitted with a large crane. This would be used for transporting cargo of sand and gravel aboard her across the Great Lakes. Despite the many accidents that the SS Neebing would go through across the Great Lakes, from salvaging to refloatings, she would actually have a pretty successful career until September 24th, 1937. September 24th, 1937. The SS Neebing was making her way through the Nipigon Straits, and she was headed toward Red Rock, Ontario for her destination. She would be carrying a load of sand and gravel, and she was also towing a coal barge named the Coteau. As the SS Neebing was making her way to her destination, a storm would begin to brew. They would be met, the Coteau and the Neebing, with gale-force winds and massive waves that would crash atop their decks. The two vessels fought desperately to manage the storm. However, they would crash into each other. The crew on the Neebing would work desperately to cut the line between the two ships, this preventing a sinking if one of them went down and pulling the other with it. During the chaos and confusion of trying to sever the line between the Coteau and the SS Neebing, one massive wave would smash into the SS Neebing. This would cause her to lurch to one side and begin to sink rapidly. There was absolutely no time to launch any lifeboats aboard her. There is actually a detailed interview from a survivor on that day during the storm that I was able to find. This comes from an exhibit called What Lies Beneath in the Canadian Wrecks of Lake Superior at the Thunder Bay Museum. A Miss Diane Robnick, a community resource officer for the museum, would go on to compile research of over 40 shipwrecks and have interviews as well. Diane would come to interview 98-year-old Bill Lewinsky. He would be one of the survivors from the SS Neebing's tragic sinking. I will now read some of his quote and recalling of the story. When the massive wave smashed into the SS Neebing, Bill, from his cabin on the freighter, 22 years old, and a whaleman, felt the Neebing lurching. He would then slip on his life jacket and head for the deck. He jumped into the icy waters of Lake Superior and helped others put on their life jackets. However, in the sinking of the SS Neebing, 6 of the 15 crew members would not make it. They would inevitably be pulled down, with the SS Neebing and her sinking to the bottom of Lake Superior. Bill would go on to tell a newspaper at the time, and I quote, "I tried to swim away from the sinking ship, but the suction from the sinking vessel kept pulling me in." He saw the SS Neebing's smokestack explode when the boilers hit the water, sending wreckage flying everywhere. End quote. Another report from another survivor, from First Mate Pete Medwid, if I'm saying his last name correctly, would go on to say, and I quote, "The boat disappeared as I jumped. The next thing I knew was there was wreckage all around me." Eventually, in all the chaos and confusion, Bill would give Pete some floating debris to cling to, and the two of them would paddle together to shore. Again, 6 of the 15 crew members aboard the SS Neebing would lose their lives and go down with the ship. Apparently, the crew members aboard the SS Neebing were able to sever the tow line from the barge Kato. As the Neebing sank, 9 crew members would jump from her and make it to the Kato, which remained afloat, and saved them. After this horrific incident, all the surviving crew members would be rescued by a German freighter, the MS Weisenberg. They would then later be transferred to the Coast Guard cutter Mackinac. The entire ordeal of the sinking of the SS Neebing was a complete disaster, and bodies from the victims were never recovered. It is now considered a gravesite on the shipwreck of the SS Neebing. The SS Neebing would finally come to rest at the bottom of the Nipigon Straits in Lake Superior at a depth of 125 feet, or 34 to 38 meters of water. The peak of the SS Neebing is the ship's large crane. This is at a depth of about 85 feet. The SS Neebing is also a popular dive site for recreational divers. The Neebing lies upright on the bottom of the lake. Much of her deck and machinery is still intact and in pretty good shape. Divers are actually able to access the engine room, which contains a Scotch marine boiler and other steam workings as well, the triple expansion steam engine, as we all know. However, it is said that many of the early dives aboard the SS Neebing from divers are scarce for information, as divers did not want to recount what they saw. The site is also a strong current and cold water area. This makes for poor visibility and can make this an advanced dive for technical divers. And that is the full story of the tragic sinking of the SS Neebing. Well, I was actually able to find some more information here that I wanted to throw in at the end here for you guys. The Neebing was actually en route from Paradise Island to Red Rock, Ontario. I didn't find that until the end just now, but I wonder if, as they departed, that the storm, did it start abruptly like so many do in other ships, or was it already choppy and windy to begin with, which I can totally believe would be the case. But with these vessels, trying to weather that and push through it, that's got to be part of the job and the risk for it. But I wonder how much of this storm was actually in the moment as they headed out into Lake Superior and for the Straits of Nipigon was severe enough that they may have considered turning back or anchoring somewhere. I don't know. I would be interested to hear what you guys would find on some extra information on this. But she's at the bottom of Lake Superior in the Nipigon Straits near Moss Island is what I was also able to find as well. But man, those must have been some humongous waves. No surprise on Lake Superior. The deadliness of these waves on Lake Superior, guys. If you've never seen how big and massive these waves can get out there, they're no joke. No joke at all. And many a ship is at the bottom because of that. But wow, imagine, and that's another thing I've learned is the suction as these ships go down, is it's no joke. These sailors really do recount being pulled under as they're trying to get away from the size of these vessels, and how many times these boilers explode or the smokestacks because of the heat as they were previously, and then the cold water rushing in, causing that explosion and wreckage to go everywhere. Man, thank goodness there were survivors though, and they were able to. Bill was able to give his recounting, and the first mate as well. That does not happen very often, that I'm able to find that kind of information and that kind of experience. It a lot of times either all the crew goes down with these ships, or say there are some survivors. I can't ever find any stories, and it sucks, but I wouldn't blame them, not wanting to relive a tragic event like that. But yeah, this was a very interesting story. Another vessel that I have never heard of, and I wanted to bring to light her story and the courage and heroism these sailors went through, and to honor the lives lost on her. And may they never be forgotten, and may they rest in peace. Yeah, this story will not fade into history, and I want to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you again so very much for being with me on this story and sharing in its rich history. Thank you guys again so much for the support on the channel. It is just growing so rapidly, and I thank you guys so very much for that. And yes, very soon here the merchandise website will be launching, so keep an eye out for that as well. But I thank you again, guys, so very much in joining me on today's episode. And as always, God bless you, be safe, and join me again next time on Songs of the Great Lakes.